All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our seventh and final episode of the season of Backstage. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. It's good to see you again. But if you're new to the show, welcome. We're happy to have you. My name's Gina. I'm the producer of Backstage. I'm the one that's handling a lot of the audio and visual elements throughout today, but I'll also be the one who keeps an eye on your questions during today. So if at any point you have a question for any of our guests throughout the show, feel free to put them in the Zoom chat, and I'll be the one that makes sure they gets asked. So like I said, I'm the producer, so I'm the one that's going to help kind of move things along. So you might see me looking around my screen or clicking. It's just to get us from point A to point B, kind of like how I'm doing now. And I'm using this as a very smooth transition to introduce you all to our host for today, Sarah Jackson. Hello.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm excited and I can't wait for today's episode. It feels like we've sort of come full circle on this episode because when we started, Gina, I don't know if you remember, fumbling and bumbling in our original series called Bloom. Our guest today, we had somebody reach out and say, hey, you need help kind of figuring out Zoom, and so she's here. So I'm so excited. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors. We cannot do these shows and offer all these free resources without full sponsor support. So I want to thank Contact Monkey. They were on our last show. We just did a podcast episode with Corey Ketchikan, one of their founders. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much, Contact Monkey, for your support this year. And also our lifetime supporter, Circle. They have a wonderful product called Broadcast. It's an entire suite built for internal communicators. Go check that out at circle.com. It'll make your life so much easier. So without further ado, Gina, I will toss back to you.
All right. So typically at this point, we introduce our talent for the show, and then we move on to our special guests. But for this episode today, our talent is actually our special guests as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get them ready to come up.
And I'll share with you how these talents actually got uncovered. So, this opening act the intention is, internal communicators, they just don't do internal comms. Typically through podcast interviews, you uncover what people really love or what also they really love in addition to internal comms. And I uncovered, let's start with Rachel Maley. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Rachel, tell us a little bit about what you do for Paycor, and then I want to get into your entrepreneurial talent that you've recently launched.
Sure. So at Paycor, I'm a senior communications and employee experience strategist. It's quite the mouthful, but essentially it's internal communications at Paycor in a nutshell.
And we've got our second guest, Emily. Share a little bit again about what you do at Paycor, and then we're going to jump into some hidden talents people might not know about you too.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Emily Regenold, and I am a senior communication strategist at Paycor. So a little bit less of a mouthful than Rachel's title. What that basically means is I focus more on the written communication side, and Rachel focuses kind of more on the whole holistic experience, including culture. And we both, dip our toes in everything, but that's kind of the differentiation there.
Well, welcome to you both, Rachel. I uncovered, and you've been a great member of the IC Pro Collective and helping us out. But I also uncovered that you have started a little side gig called Foster the Fun. Tell us about that and about how you're, exercising this entrepreneurial hidden talent that people might not know about you.
Yeah, sure. So I have a huge passion for events and just making people happy really is the root of it. But I love doing it at Paycor, and I sort of created this little side hustle called Foster the Fun. Foster is my maiden name, so had a little creativity there and wanted to kind of keep the legacy going. And so that's how it sort of bloomed and blossomed. And then just creating lots of fun things along the way for people to have fun.
Yes. And I understand with your background in early childhood education, you also have this tapping into kind of happy moments and fun where you put together kind of kits for busy moms. Like I know you put together the boot. I don't know if anybody's gotten booed, but
Rachel booed me. It was very fun.
I did boo Emily.
Together kits, and now I've got my elf for Elf on the Shelf, who's supposed to arrive the day after Thanksgiving. Busy mom,
Yes.
got to do Elf on the Shelf. tell us a little bit about how you're helping busy moms out with these foster the
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really a nod to a lot of the traditions. I really remember my grandma, creating those traditions with us as we were growing up. So boo buckets, May baskets, Elf on the Shelf wasn't around when I was a kid, but I really loved the spirit behind it and moving the elf around to have some fun. So I created these kits for, all those traditions. The most recent one being Elf on the Shelf. And so it's got all the activities, the signage, everything ready to go to kind of plug and play and let the elf have his fun, and so that you don't have to be stressed.
All right. So we can follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. We'll put that in our follow-up email. And Emily, we've heard that your secret talent is you do a really amazing virtual workout. Share with us about that.
Yeah, I prefer the non-virtual workouts, but we'll take what we can get in 2020, right? So I've been a fitness instructor outside of work for about 4.5 years. It's just something that I do for fun. And I always find that like I show up better at work. I show up better in all areas of my life when, I have multiple things going on. I'm the type of person who loves being busy, loves being engaged in multiple things. So for the past 4.5 years, I've taught bar, I've taught boot camp classes, and I actually just switched to teaching cycle. So beginning next week, I'll be teaching at Cycle Bar Hyde Park in Kenwood, which is really fun. And it's keeping me busy, that's for sure.
She's also really intense. Great workout.
I love it. And I love that you're hometown girls. For those of you who don't know, they're right here in my neck of the woods here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it just makes me happy that it's Thanksgiving. We got the hometown crowd here.
Yes.
I love showcasing kind of the whole self of people. We also like to do this opening act as a way to showcase with your employee remote events, to really showcase your employees and go find their hidden talents. It's funny, the last show we did, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a young gal that did a beautiful song that she wrote. And the founder was on our show of Contact Monkey. And since then, I heard that they are getting a recording studio for her to record her music. I mean, it's just crazy to think where these opening acts have gone. So we'll make sure we follow you on Instagram and stay connected with you. But I want to get into the internal comms part of our conversation. I think you two are two of the most innovative, women I've met in doing all these interviews. And I love that. I think both of those episodes, and we're right in the middle of the series. If you haven't listened to part 1, it launched last Tuesday. Part 2 launches tomorrow. But you really show kind of your growth and everything that you learn. So set it up a little bit. The podcast is all about Paycor's journey in what happened with the pandemic, and then kind of, we don't know if we're going back, and then we're not, and now we're not, we're all virtual first. Set it up a little bit for us. Maybe Rachel, kick us off here and give us kind of a high level view of Paycor's virtual first program.
I'll actually kick it to Emily because she was on the team when it really started off. So Emily, you take that journey.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So like Sarah teed up it, we talked about it on the podcast a little bit, but just high level, we had started tracking coronavirus last February as a company, and really, day by day, like everyone else, figuring out what was going on. And when we made the decision to go working remotely, we of course thought it would just be a couple weeks like everyone else. Paycor was not a company that did a ton of work from home in the past. Some of us might have done one day a week. But as we continue to work from home, we realized we were really effective working from home as a company. And we also realized that the majority of our associates, about 85% in a survey, said that they either preferred to be working home half the time or all the time. So we took that, and our coronavirus response team that had started back in February really pivoted into a virtual first team and exploring what virtual first means for Paycor and for our associates. So what that does mean for us is that most of us are not heading back into the office full time after this. 80% of us will work from home the majority of the time, but eventually when COVID does go away, we will have the opportunity to reserve space at our corporate headquarters in a hoteling system. So none of us would have an assigned desk, but it would almost be like a shared workspace, WeWork type concept where you could head in and reserve a space. And so from a communications perspective, there's just been a lot of really unique and fun challenges to tackle in terms of what communications needs to look like in a virtual environment. How do we compensate for our channels that used to be in the office, like our TVs and our desk drops? And then, of course, there's the whole fun of returning to the office, and what does that look like when we do open our headquarters back up in terms of signage and e-learning. So we've been busy, that's for sure.
A lot of pivoting too.
Yeah, a lot
The
of
world
that.
likes to pivot.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm pivoted out. But yeah,
I will co-sign that.
I need to just frame that Ross Geller meme with him pivoting the couch, because I think that's every day.
so funny, yes. Well, so I want to follow up, Emily, on something that you just said. You were quoting 85% of our team did this, and that was something that I noticed you kept saying, and that just fell like off the tip of your tongue when we were doing the episode, when I interviewed you. And so I asked you about how are you getting all this feedback, and part of the reason why I love the interview so much is you guys are so vulnerable and open. Like, well, we didn't used to go get focus groups, and now it's part of everything that we do. Talk about the feedback part and the focus group part, and how you're doing that, and your growth into that, and how that's informed the plan for 2021.
Yeah, it really is something that's necessary for us these days in terms of getting feedback, something that we all just used to do in passing, right? In the cafeteria, you'd ask someone, oh, hey, did you watch our Pulse, our news broadcast we put on today? But we don't get those types of things anymore, right? So if we want to hear from our associates, which we do, associate feedback drives everything we do, we have to be really intentional about it. So we've run a couple big surveys as a company. The first that I mentioned, 85% of people wanted to work virtually 50 or 100% of the time. That was taken in our sort of exploratory virtual first survey that we did back in May. Once results from that proved that people wanted to be in a virtual environment and that they felt they could be really successful long-term in a virtual environment, we made the decision to go virtual first. We followed up with another survey that was more like, hey, now we're virtual first, what do you need from us? So it was those couple surveys along with feedback sessions that we did from all of our executive committee members, all of their direct reports, all of our employee resource groups, and a couple other sort of niche focus groups that we really heard from every single department in the company, every single level of associate in the company. We compiled all the feedback and put it together. And even now, just in the past couple of weeks, we've started doing one-on-one feedback sessions. So I was just on a feedback session with an employee right before this, and you're just constantly hearing the voice. And a lot of the things that they have to say are very consistent, which is helpful, right? So like one thing that I have heard in my past couple of feedback sessions I've done within the past week is, we want video and written communications for everything, right? So not only do they want us to put on the video, they want it all in writing so they can choose if it's video or writing. I've heard that 3 times in the past week. So it is, they're keeping us on our toes, that's for sure, but we're thankful that our associates are willing to provide us a lot of feedback, and that we are able to, have high rates of participation on our surveys and whatnot, because we're always then going back and saying what we did with what they told us. So we're not just doing the survey, we're saying, hey, we did the survey and here's what happened with it.
Yeah, that must be a thing, because it's the same feedback we got on our podcast. Like,
yeah.
We want the written transcript too, with timestamps on all. And so
yep.
Okay.
We want it all on a platter. I'll give it all to us. Yeah.
So that's something that, like, all right, we can do this.
Folks want to go apple picking. They want to decide which thing they want to dive into.
Rachel, I want to talk to you about some of the ideas, that you implemented. And again, real quick, go to the podcast, listen about that. We dive real deep into focus groups and feedback and all of that. But moving to some of the creative ideas that worked. You talked about, you guys have an e-learning platform and some of the cool stuff of like this thinking. And this is really pulling, I think, from your education brain and how it works. Of people really needed to be taught how to even set up their space. So talk to me about some of the creative things that you guys did do that worked when you engaged your employees.
Yeah, so early on, we did a handful of challenges. I think many folks, tried to leverage and keep folks engaged in the beginning. So we leveraged our intranet mainly as a space to share your workspaces. And so we had a little challenge. We had some past gift cards and prizes and extra swag that we were mailing out to people who participated. And so it was fun to see people posting their offices and how they pivoted their spaces. You're talking about some of these people who have never really worked from home more than one day a week, if not ever. And so people have these like little nooks and crannies, or they were using their books to set up their laptops, just like all these innovative ways to really get their space set up so that they could work from home. And so I think it helped inspire other people that, oh, hey, I have a stack of books too. I can set my computer on a stack of books. You know, it doesn't have to be elaborate and expensive. So that was really one of the first things we started doing. We also asked, you know, for the pets of Paycor, we wanted to see your work from home companions, whether they were your kids or your pets or your plants even, what you were kind of getting into. And that kept people really engaged on our internet. We were seeing a lot more audience on our platform because folks were going there. They wanted to know when our next post would be, our next video, our next executive post. They were craving that information, really. We also kind of, we were getting all of these emails, like, I'm not kidding, Emily and I were being texted and Zoomed and emailed, like all these links, like add this, add this, add this. And so we were sifting through those things and really created a one-stop shop on our internet for folks to go there and be able to see, you know, oh, these are resources for my kids. So there were things like the zoo was putting on live shows or coloring pages or just ideas to keep people engaged while they're at home, because it was so interesting there for a while. But then once we were getting out of it, we stepped back. Some of the survey showed us that people needed to be really trained what the expectation was. So there was 3 parts. What was the company expectation? What was Paycor bringing to the table? What was the manager or leadership role in that? And then what's the associate's role in that? And so part of that is, hey, you as an individual, you do need to set up your space. Paycor did their part in giving folks monitors and chairs. If you needed one, we set this whole thing up where you could go get one. And so there was just kind of 3 levels there, and we walked folks through like what all those steps were and what we expected, and then gave actions out of that.
That's key, setting that expectation. And again, for people in the audience today who want questions, I know you can chat, you know, us privately, publicly, put them in there as we are kind of wrap up here at 1:30 today. But I wanted to, one of the things that the episode showcases is how fast, I mean, you talk about entrepreneurial spirit, both of you are, and you remind me and implement so many fast, iterative type things that are the hallmark of an entrepreneur. So one of the things I also noticed is how quickly you grew and kind of kept leapfrogging yourself. And it struck me that you had a 2-person team. Am I right?
Yep, just the 2 of us.
Just the 2 of us. And so then I asked, how are you dividing and conquering? Can you talk a little bit about how you guys, you know, split your team up based on your talents and your strengths?
Emily, I'll let you go again.
Okay.
So we're not talking over each other.
I think there are some natural lines, right? Like I teed up a little bit in the intro that I focus a little bit more on written communications. And that's just, you know, my background. That's what I've worked in for 10 years, what I'm naturally good at. Whereas, you know, Rachel has the education background, all of her event and foster the fun type stuff. Like I am so thankful she is on the team. That's just like something that does not come naturally to me at all, right? So we have these natural divides that make it kind of obvious about who will take on certain things. I think because we are so small, we also have to take on things that aren't always natural to us as well, right? And there are also times where we've just had to make decisions. Like an example would be that we've had more requests than ever coming in from our human resources team, just in terms of open enrollment. They're changing up their department, coming up with, you know, new career growth communications plans. And we were both getting asked the same questions by like 3 different people coming at us 3 different ways. And we realized it was just so confusing. So we just said, hey, you know what? Let's have one person take this on. Emily, you're going to own HR communications from here on out. And sometimes we just have to make those calls to kind of say, this is your bucket of work, because when it's 2 people, people kind of know, oh, I just go to Emily when I have a communications question, or I just go to Rachel when I have a communications question. And sometimes those one-off relationships are great, but they can really create kind of confusion about what's going on because person A is talking to me about it this way and person B is talking to Rachel. So I think the thing that keeps us sane and that keeps us solid is that every day we have a 30-minute touch base, which a lot of times, we're going through a million projects we're each working on and talking about that. But sometimes it just serves as a nice catch up for us as well. So for us, it comes down to communication between Rachel and I. Like, if our communication isn't organized, there's a good shot that what's going on in our team isn't organized and that our buckets of work are maybe intersecting or overlapping places we don't know. So we just try to keep each other as up to date as possible.
I will add to that too, Sarah, that we're really growing and building with the technology that we have available to us. So things like Teams, Zoom, OneNote, using your daily insights on your Outlook, we're really trying to leverage the things that we've researched and put into these trainings that we gave out to our associates and model that behavior ourselves. So a perfect example is trying to use Teams to kind of set up all of our tasks so that we can all see it. We're not perfect yet, but that's where we're trying to get into an intake process so that you're not coming to just Rachel or Emily on the side and that there's more of a formal process. But also know that things happen and we have to put out fires quickly sometimes, so that intake process isn't always the best path.
I remember you saying progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection, yes.
On the episode. So Gina, did we get any questions? I know we've got about 5 minutes to wrap up here. Anything come in? I want to make sure I get to what the audience is wanting to hear and learn.
Absolutely. We do have, it's 2 questions, but they're packaged as one. And it's, they want to know, given with everyone is all virtual, what are you both focusing on in 2021? And then the other part of the question was, you mentioned, Rachel, specifically how you've been keeping all the employees engaged, which is awesome. But they want to know, how are you planning on keeping them engaged moving forward, especially with Zoom fatigue, with that setting in?
I can take that one. So the Zoom fatigue is super real. We're even feeling it. We share a little bit of some of our fails in our podcast. I think that part's coming out this week, where we had a very low attendance at one of our last ideas, but we're trying to think about all of our channels. And so one example is this holiday, we've been putting out a lot of videos. In the past, we've done holiday videos of our executives, and sometimes they're a little fun. They might dress up if they're into it. And so this year we were like, look, we can't keep putting out more videos. And so we actually pivoted it into a card, and it's coming with a cookie cutter, and it'll have a QR code on it where we're going to encourage associates to share their recipes. Again, the ultimate goal there is coming back to our internet, seeing the things you're not missing. You don't want to miss these things that are out there. So reminding people that there's fun things too, but we really need your engagement here. And so we're just always challenging ourselves to hear what other people are doing. We'll borrow ideas whenever we can, because work smarter, not harder, right? And so it is, we're just trying to think through all of our channels. Another example is we do an associate newsletter. It used to be a paper copy. We're pivoting it to a digital copy to be able to have some engagement elements into it where we haven't had that before. So just always challenging ourselves to think of new ways to bring it to the table.
Well, and people can, I encourage you to go check out the episode. I think you showcase the kind of mindset and being that it's going to take to keep going and trying and really seeing kind of the failures as good feedback and learning, but how to just learn it and keep on going. So I encourage people to watch that.
And as for, I was going to say, as for 2021, we did reset our whole communication strategy. So going back to that survey, we're now surveying on a quarterly basis. So taking that feedback constantly and looking at our plan and matching it up and seeing like, hey, this isn't going to work this way now. So we might have to try it a different way or scrap it all together if the attendance isn't there. One example of that is we do an employee spotlight once a week, and it used to be our most popular, like highest viewed item, and now it's like not so much. And so we've already started talking about like, hey, if this keeps going down, like we need to change something here. So again, using the data, using the feedback, always pivoting the plan.
No, but to be up with it with that right mindset, I think is so key. And again, I encourage people to listen to part 2 coming out tomorrow. And you can get it all here when virtual takes a front seat, the strategy behind a winning remote work experience. And we can't wait to circle back with you to both to see what's happening in 2021. And I want to see all these creative ideas. I love the cookie cutter idea. We got to get that. So we got to get some of that stuff out on our blog, some pictures. We'll have to figure out how to solicit those. And
Now we just hope people use the cookie cutter, you know? You never know.
I mean, I personally really like cookies, so I'll make an effort.
well, and I should also mention we are when you talk about your channel strategy, when you're talking about cookie cutters and mailing, you mail them home, I guess, to.
Yeah, we're mailing them. We just think people need some bright cheeriness in their mailbox, right? I mean, we heard a lot of positive feedback with open enrollment. They got a mailer in their mail and they said it brought a smile to their face. And I was like, huh, you know, replacing the desk drop via mail.
Direct mail became a channel that I opened back up for our team. They're all getting these little elf on the shelf things.
Cute.
Their posts, they get one day where they have to do something with the elf and post it. We use Slack with our team. And so, but all these creative ideas, I know that if you're trying to get ahead of it, our finale episode, our podcast sort of went global. We talked to Lauren Ritchie from RACQ in Australia. She has a lovely accent. And she did a whole session on decluttering her channels and a whiteboarding session. So that'll be our finale coming out in 2 weeks. But you reminded me of that. Some channels that don't work anymore, now they're to us and vice versa. So to kind of always be looking at it, especially heading into this second marathon. Well, I can't thank you both enough. I know we're right at the 1:30 time. And you came in on the day you were off, Rachel, so I appreciate you hanging out with us. So we're going to let you get back to your Thanksgiving holiday. And
It's the pro of virtual, though, right? You got to look for the silver linings.
Well, I love it. Look in your inboxes for a gift from us for spending so much time with us and just being a huge support to you both are just gems to the internal comms community. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Gina, so end us off with our last show.
All right. Well, typically right about now, I'd be telling you guys when the date of our next show is. But once again, this is the last episode for the season. And we just wanted to thank all of you who attended with us, whether live or watching the video later. Just the fact that we've been able to do this and help you guys or give you guys that VIP pass and bring you backstage. It's been really fun for us, and we hope it's been very valuable to all of you. So from all of us at IC Pro, thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to come back next year with all the new stuff that we have planned.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a happy Thanksgiving.